Forgiven me, because I've listened to this argument over a number of weeks, and I have to say I don't see what the member paints as being the issue. On one hand, we are being told that if we were to put all this onto a statutory basis, everything would be well. But the member has already said in this debate that it's an issue about whether we will be able, because of the changes that are being implemented as a result of welfare reform, to be able to have the adequate resource in the independent sector to give advice. So what is it that really is at the heart of this? Is it about ensuring that they're on a statutory basis that gives them some particular position within a legislative framework, or is the member saying that he's not happy with the independent advice sector in the information that they're given, or is it all about getting more resources into the independent advice sector? And I sometimes fail to just see where it all fits in terms of what it really is that we're being asked to provide.
I thank the Minister for his intervention, and if I was unclear, I apologise, and I'll try to be clearer. I referred to the lack of resources within our social security offices. At no time, I believe, subject to Hansard, did I suggest I was unhappy with the advice given by the independent advice sector. I think it is about protecting, giving security to the independent advice sector at a time when resources are being stretched, that their place is protected. We recognise the need for those services, and I don't criticise those in the social security offices. I think there are separate roles for the independent advice sector and the statutory advice given in the social security offices. But it's recognising that role, putting it on a statutory footing, and giving the security that going forward, despite the pressure on resources, that we will continue to have an independent advice sector, but also that it be adequately resourced to meet the demands that will inevitably rise as a result of the changes proposed in this bill. The other aspect of why I believe it needs to be independent advice is, and again, this is an issue that the Minister has addressed many times and faced many times, is the issue of what has come from the UK Government, which is an agenda to cut the welfare bill. And I don't believe the same Government, and Mr Story can answer whether or not it's his agenda or not, but the same Government that seeks to reduce the welfare bill gives advice to those who are seeking to access welfare payments. I think those rules do need to be separated, and we have seen in GB the pressures to reduce welfare spend through some pretty odious means, including setting targets for sanctions. And I know the Minister says it won't happen here. I believe his sincerity when he says it, but we have to be on guard of what's happened in GB does not translate in Northern Ireland. So I think for those reasons, why I propose, along with the SDLP Amendment 17, and would favour it to the Minister's Amendment 23. I think it's important to not only have the statutory duty to provide free advice, but indeed that the statutory duty extends to independent free advice. Amendment 11 and Amendments 11 and 21 relate to the bedroom tax, and I think this is a key amendment, and I think we will learn a lot today and how parties respond to this amendment. The amendment proposes that even where alternative accommodation exists, that nobody should be subject to essentially the bedroom tax, what's become known as the bedroom tax. There has been undoubtedly uncertainty created, because we have been given commitments time and again that the bedroom tax would not be implemented in Northern Ireland. But then, And even in the same debate where the Minister said that he was not introducing bedroom tax by the front door, my reading of his words were that he was introducing the bedroom tax by the front door. He very explicitly stated, and I'll quote from Hansard, "The Executive have agreed to create a separate fund of £17 million per annum that will mitigate the impact of this measure by protecting existing and future tenants from any reduction in their housing benefit, unless there is a significant change in their personal circumstances or they are offered suitable alternative accommodation." That's the bedroom tax. That's exactly what the bedroom tax is. It's a phased introduction, I accept, and that it would only apply where suitable alternative accommodation exists. But where that accommodation exists, or where there is the change in the personal circumstances, as outlined by the Minister, then the bedroom tax would be implemented. So I was accused of all sorts of things on social media and other places in terms of misleading and whatever else. I merely am going on the words of the Minister. And if those words are wrong, and if he wishes to retract them today, then I'll welcome that. And he's shaking his head, so I assume he's not. Or if Sinn Féin want to stand up to say, well, they didn't agree to the implementation of the bedroom tax, I will welcome that, and I will welcome them going through the lobby to support Amendments 11 and 21, which will ensure that the bedroom tax isn't implemented and that this legislation makes it clear that it cannot be implemented as proposed by the Minister in the previous stage. Certainly will.
Assist me by pointing out where there has been any consideration given by the Minister or others in relation to people with disabilities where they require additional accommodation within their home to meet the needs of their personal care, or even in fact for storage of some of the aids and equipment that they may need.
I certainly can't find it, and I thank the member for raising the point, because we were given all these assurances about the flexibilities of the bedroom tax. And I remember when the previous Minister was in post, Mr McCausland, and I listed the various flexibilities that would be required to protect people with disabilities, with carers, parents with care and responsibilities, potentially people with children in the armed forces, etc., etc. And asked, well, Minister, if we give all these exemptions, what is the point of the bedroom? How much do we actually save by implementing the bedroom tax? And surely it would just become an ideologically driven mechanism to punish people for being on benefits. So we don't have in the face of this bill the flexibilities that we were promised. And indeed what we do have is a commitment from the Minister to implement the bedroom tax where suitable housing, alternative housing exists or personal circumstances change. So I stand again at this stage looking for the assurance that the bedroom tax won't be implemented, and I think the only way to give that solid assurance is to support Amendments 11 and Amendments 21. Coming to some of the other amendments put forward by the SDLP, the various amendments 2, 3, 8, 9, 10 on explanatory documents in relation to sanctions. Again, I regret that the Assembly did pass at the last stage the maximum sanction of 18 months. But I think, given that that is the case, that this is a sound amendment from the SDLP, we have evidence that those who suffer sanctions don't always understand why or the nature of the sanctions, and I think any assistance in that regard is to be welcomed. Also, Amendment 16 by the SDLP in relation to the continual payment of benefits while a sanction appeal is being heard. Again, I don't believe that people, and again in some cases for whom this will be their only income, should be punished whereby mistakes of the Department are made. and thereby continuing the payment